My name is Tiffany Ma. I'm the director at the Center for the Education of Women. I'm the 5th executive director here. It's my honor to serve as the co-MC for today's celebration, along with Sandraya DeRosa, who's standing by the door over there. On behalf of all of us at CEW, I welcome you to the CEW Inspire Awards, honoring the legacies of one of my predecessors, former CEW director Carol Hollenshead, and remarkable university leaders Sarah Goddard Power and Rhetaugh Dumas. Today, we are proud to host university leaders, friends and family members of Carol Hollenshead, Sarah Goddard Power, and Rhetaugh Dumas, colleagues, community members, friends, and distinguished guests. And for those watching the live stream, welcome and thank you for joining us online this year, the first time we're live streaming this event. I firmly believe that all three of these strong women leaders, Carol, Sarah, and Rhetaugh, would have recognized the injustice in how U of M was established on the homelands of the Anishinaabe, the Three Fires people. It was in 1817 that the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations were obliged to cede their sacred lands through the treaty at the foot of the rapids, with the promise of access to an education once the university was established. Was what motivated them to give up their lands. I recognize that this acknowledgement cannot undo the harms or legacies of settler colonization. However, it can make each of us reflect on the treatment of the indigenous peoples and hopefully encourage each of us to find ways to support those populations. The three female leaders that we recognize through this award had a remarkable impact, both at U of M and nationally. While their paths and accomplishments were distinct, they all demonstrated astounding perseverance, hard work, and navigational skills that guided them as they forged paths for women and marginalized identities at the university. Along the way, all sacrificed beyond what any of us can comprehend to ensure that the skills, talents, and insights of women and minorities would be heard. They all played the long game to create change by revising and creating policies, developing programs and services, and strategically influencing other leaders to recognize that in order for our great university and nation to advance, we all need to have voices to support others to be included and recognized. The awards presented today celebrate those who carry forward that shared vision. If you are an awardee, would you mind raising your hand? Thank you. Just to give you a foreshadowing of what's to come. I hope those of you who are watching online will share your congratulations to the awardees in the comment section. We will share those comments with the awardees after the program. The first award being presented today is the Carol Hollenshead Award. The Carol Hollenshead Award was created in honor of former director Carol Hollenshead 20-year tenure at the Center for the Education of Women, honoring awardees who, like Carol, have proven that social change is possible through persistence, hard work, and who demonstrate that one person can make a lasting difference in their communities. Carol was responsible for establishing the center as a foundational component of the University of Michigan, especially concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion. In her first year in this role, she turned the Center for the Continuing Education of Women, an organization with limited funding and exposure, into the Center for the Education of Women, engaging in national research projects and greatly expanding its presence on campus. Carol built on the incredible work of the women who came before her and ensured CEW had solid standing at the university and in the community. For that, I'm forever grateful, as are the staff, as well as I hope the university. The award, is in Carol's name, was established after her retirement for the center in 2012. This award honors faculty, staff, and students whose sustained efforts have resulted in greater equity with regard to gender, race, class, age, disability, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Without further ado, it's my honor to present the first Inspire Award in honor of Carol Hollenshead to an associate professor at the Marsal Family School of Education for her leadership in creating transformative learning spaces in higher education and sustained dedication to the advancement of educational rights for marginalized populations. A cornerstone of her scholarly work has been her research in the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, where she has directly engaged communities that have traditionally been excluded from formal educational spaces. She's also worked to shape policy at the national level and international levels, co-leads the Global Education Discussion Group on campus, and co-launched a peer mentorship program designed to support newcomer migrant youth at Melvindale High School, among many other accomplishments. Michelle Bellino, on behalf of the Center of the Education of Women and the Inspire Awards Committee, it's my honor to present you with the Carol Hollenshead Award. For each awardee, we're going to be presenting a Matawi tile. We do our best, based on the descriptions that are provided to us of the awardee, to pick something that was in line with their work. So, Michelle, I'm honored to present you with this Matawi tile.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
A little preview for the other awardees. I'll give this to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna start by lowering this a bit. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here and to be recognized with the Carol Hollenshead CEW Plus Inspire Award. Although I arrived at U of M after Carol had joined, I had, and so many others on this campus, have inherited the work that she put into making this institution more diverse, equitable, and just space for teaching and learning. Some of my colleagues at the Marsal School have shared stories about how Carol impacted their lives and careers and the important work that she did to support them. So I started my work in the field of education, focused on histories of violence and oppression and the legacies they leave behind that mark educational systems and wider communities. I began this work in contexts impacted by armed conflict, and over time I have become increasingly concerned with forced displacement and transborder movement that is a consequence of one's basic rights not being met. I'm an ethnographer, and so one of the tools that I use in my work is storytelling, and so I thought I could use a little bit of this time to share a few stories with you about some of the young people I have worked with and learned from over the years who have helped me understand how profoundly education has been impacted by conflict and forced displacement, and how profoundly transformative education can be. So I want to start with Ari. The first thing that Ari remembers about school is that she was not allowed to attend. Each morning, she followed her brother on a dirt path in their Sudanese village, and she sat outside the school, practicing writing letters with her finger in the dirt. Years later, Ari's uncle offered to pay her school fees. But once in school, Ari struggled to balance her studies with housework and caregiving for her younger siblings. She diligently constructed schedules to manage her time, staying awake into early mornings to prepare meals and clean the house, and staying awake into the night to prepare for school. Ari earned a scholarship to attend university, a rare accomplishment. But when fighting broke out, her family fled to Kenya for their safety. Ari taught me about the gendered nature of displacement and schooling, and the burdens that girls and women carry alongside lower expectations for their education. Hussein's parents carried him as an infant across the border from Somalia to Kenya, where he was raised in Kakuma refugee camp. At school, he strained to listen to the teacher over the sound of his growling, empty belly. At night, when he had no light at home to study, he walked to the camp hospital to read under the fluorescent lights illuminating the entrance. Watching medical staff respond to emergencies, he became inspired to become a doctor. Hussein applied to universities in Canada, Costa Rica, Kenya, Uganda, the UK, and the US. Despite finishing at the top of his class, though, no one would admit him with the financial support that he needed. Hussein helped me understand how higher education institutions tend not to distinguish undocumented or displaced students like refugees or asylum seekers from other applicants. So students who apply from overseas like Hussein tend to be classified as international students in university admission and financial aid policies. Daniela was 15 when her family fled violent threats in their Honduran neighborhood to seek asylum in the US. Daniela was sad to leave her friends behind, but compelled by the promise of safety and a better life. Daniela, her mother, and two sisters arrived at the US southern border just days after a significant immigration policy change which ordered them to remain in Mexico until their court case was established. They waited in Mexico for almost 2 years. They had to visit several schools before one agreed to enroll Daniela, despite that the Constitution upholds the right to education for all children living in Mexico, including non-citizens. Daniela had no friends at school, and even the teachers treated her badly. People told her to return to her country, that she didn't belong there. She was relieved when they were granted access into the U.S. to begin their family's asylum case. At that point, Daniela was almost 17, a year away from aging out of the Nebraska high school near her new home. She was advised to take language classes and secure work rather than continuing her education. So Daniela taught me how schools can contribute to feelings of non-belonging, and she also taught me how newly resettled refugees and asylum seekers may struggle to access schools when they are on the cusp of adulthood, and the challenge of establishing state residency to become eligible for in-state tuition for higher education. So Ari, Hussein, and Daniela overcame barriers to access basic education in their countries of origin and contexts where they sought asylum, only to encounter new obstacles to inclusion, financial and bureaucratic hurdles, and exclusionary policies based on their age and status. And I wanted to share these stories with you because these are some of the young people who have shaped the trajectory of so much of my work in educational research and advocacy, and also because it has motivated work I've done closer to home, including on our campus. It may sound like these stories take place far from here, and yes, geographically they do, but they don't have little to do with us. These are students on our campus and in our neighborhood schools who have lived these experiences and carry them into the spaces where we teach and learn and build community. And right now, their sense of safety and community and their opportunities to learn are under threat yet again. I believe that higher education institutions like ours have a responsibility to respond to displacement, to bridge educational access gaps that we know exist globally between students who have and have not had experiences of displacement, to create more welcoming, inclusive, and migrant-sensitive policies to support students on our campus who have had these experiences or may become displaced from their communities or countries of origin as wars, political violence, and climate crises unfold. And also to prepare all students to recognize, reflect, and respond to displacement as an urgent global issue of our time. These goals animate my work with newcomer migrant communities in the U.S., migrant young people and families seeking asylum like Daniela, and those who endure their entirety of their educational career in contexts of displacement like Ari and Hussein. They also underlie the Coalition for Welcoming and Belonging, which I founded a few years ago on our campus to bring together faculty, staff, and student leaders working on these issues on our campus and beyond. I've had wonderful partners in this work with Marcela Ortiz, someone who's in the room, and Katie Lopez from the School of Social Work, and also Amr Brown in Central Student Government. And it has been really moving to see our community come together across disciplinary and program areas, and across various statuses to recognize and better support the people on our campus and in our communities whose movement within and across borders has influenced their educational opportunities and experiences, but should not influence their educational rights. I want to thank my students, my colleagues and leaders at Marsal School of Education, and my family, especially Nate, Reed, Mom, and Dad, for believing in the work that I do, even when it takes me far away from you. Know that you are never far away from me. Thank you for this great honor.
Thank you, Michelle, for your wonderful presentation. The Sarah Goddard Power and Rhetaugh Dumas Awards both originated as the Academic Women's Caucus Awards, which were first presented in 1984. I want to give a shout out to both Marilee Benor and Pat Coleman Burns for making sure that the legacy of these women are carried forward by partnering with CEW, but really they are the stewards of this award. Members of the Academic Women's Caucus lobbied for the hire and promotion of top female administrators, equitable salaries for female faculty, and anti-discrimination policies within the university. Prior to its official formation in the summer of 1975, women faculty and staff who would eventually make up the caucus fought for equal rights, among such other issues as making the role of women faculty more visible. Supported by the Office of Human Resources and Institutional Equity Office, officially in 1975, its charge was to develop an inclusive organization of all academic women and men of the Ann Arbor, Dearborn, and Flint campuses of the University of Michigan, to serve as a forum for the exchange of information about the status of academic women at the university and as a focus necessary to the investigation and resolution of their special concerns. Both the Goddard Power and Dumas Awards are presented to faculty who are dedicated to the betterment of women in underserved communities. They demonstrate a clear record of success and significant achievement in research and scholarship, and are distinguished leaders who also give back to their communities through inspiring mentorship to junior colleagues. AWC Awards were later renamed the Sarah Goddard Power Awards in 1988 to honor faculty and administrators like Regent Power, who have worked tirelessly to advance the position of women and minorities in faculty and administrative roles. A U of M regent for more than 12 years, Sarah Goddard Power was widely acclaimed as a major contributor to higher education, an advocate for affirmative action and human rights, and a champion of freedom for the international press. When Eugenia Carpenter, co-chair of the Academic Women's Caucus, suggested that an award should be established to honor scholarship focused on women and gender, Regent Sarah Goddard Power was very supportive. In 1984, an awards committee was established to select the first recipients of the AWC Awards, and the reception was hosted at the Regent Power's house. Thus, it seemed appropriate that the Academics Women's Caucus Award be renamed to honor Regent Power after her death in 1987. In 1988, Regent Philip H. Power, her husband, was appointed by Governor James Blanchard to her regent seat, graciously consenting to allow the caucus to rename its award the Academic Women's Caucus Sarah Goddard Power Award. The next Inspire Award, in honor of Sarah Goddard Power, goes to the Associate Chair for Research and Co-Director of the Gynecology Division at the University of Michigan Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. She receives this award for her sustained commitment to using her expertise and influence to break down barriers and foster opportunities for women and other marginalized identities. She's the founding director of the program on Women's Plus's Healthcare Effectiveness Research, establishing a pioneering interdisciplinary platform to address gaps in women's healthcare that bring together diverse faculty across public health, nursing, policy, and gender studies. She's known for her joyful mentorship with an extraordinary record as a mentor and sponsor. On behalf of the Center for the Education of Women and the Inspire Awards Committee, as well as the Academic Women's Caucus, it's my honor to present Vanessa Dalton with the Sarah Goddard Power Award. Let's see how we did. There you are. I'll put the box next to it.
To get the correct glasses. Well, thank you. I want to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude for the Center of Education on Women Plus and the review committee for getting this award. I'm also really grateful to Dr. Fenner, who's my longest mentor, for nominating me for this. I'm really humbled and especially touched to receive an award that honors the amazing legacy of Sarah Goddard Power. By way of introduction, I came to the University of Michigan in 1997 from the University of North Carolina, and I came here to do residency in OBGYN. I then evolved to become a health services researcher and a subspecialist in complex family planning, which at a core is a specialty that provides services that enable people to choose when and if they have children. And those services include contraception and abortion care. Similarly, my research, much of my work has focused on health services research and policy and research on policy related to reproductive health. And again, especially in contraception and abortion care, including now, of course, abortion policy. I direct an academic community here at the University of Michigan called the Program on Women Plus Healthcare Effectiveness Research, or what we call POWER. POWER is, I think, best described as an academic and learning community. It's housed in the OBGYN department, but really does bring together faculty, staff, and learners from around campus and sometimes from our community. This gives some idea of the work that we do, and this is just a piece of it. But I think the more important parts I want to share about this program is sort of the how we are centered around a shared interest in women plus health, research and evaluation, and I mean research with a small r, not everybody's work doesn't look the same. Trying to generate information that is informative for health policy. There's a lot of advocacy work, mentorship, which is, I'm going to spend a minute today focusing on that, and then training in both the clinical setting as well as in research and advocacy. I think it's fair to describe POWER as sort of a form of collective community and collective mentorship. It's probably, and it should not be surprising to anyone here, that people who choose to study reproductive justice, abortion, gender, stigma are usually or disproportionately more likely to be as individuals from non-dominant identities or culture, and oftentimes poorly represented in academics and probably medicine in particular. Women, people of color, sexual minorities, transgender people, and people of first and second generation immigrants. I'm saying this without the burden of data, and I'm sure someone here has looked at this, but I am just telling you this from my personal experience over the last 30 years working with really exciting young people. Supporting the professional development of people earlier in their career has always been a mission of POWER and is something that really inspires me. And while I'm here today accepting this award, I want to make it really crystal clear that this is all group work. And everything that I've achieved has been because of the amazing people that I'm surrounded by, including the individuals themselves that sometimes I'm supporting. And Jess Dozier is an example that I have shared in a variety of settings, and she kind of always laughs about it a little bit. But so she was a first generation college student that reached out to me when she was a freshman here. And she took me to a dorm to have dinner with her, and she had collected this group of freshmen to talk to me about my career. And I'd never been in the dorms here. And the way that she had everything sort of lined up, she had prepped these other women that were there of what to say and, you know, to make sure that they talked to me and all of this. It was really quite remarkable. But the reason I always bring her up is in some ways she has shaped my career probably as much as I've shaped her. She went on from here to go to Emory and get a master's in public health, and then got a PhD at Hopkins, and is now back as a U of M presidential postdoctoral fellow, and I believe is going to get a first faculty appointment in the School of Nursing shortly. I don't know what it is like to walk through the world to be a person of color, disabled, non-binary, or an immigrant. I do have some sense of what it's like to be excluded from spaces because of my gender. In medical school, and I have a UNC alum in the room, so she'll know this is true. When I was in medical school, my class was close to half and half, male and female. But in North Carolina at the time, only about 20% of practicing physicians were women. And were women. And I had gotten assigned to a community practice in a small town for my general surgery experience. And I spent, I would say, most of my time in the hallway because the physician did not think it was appropriate that I would be in the room when he was doing exams on male patients. And I don't actually think this was coming from the patients. I think this was coming from him. I did not feel really empowered to do anything about that, but I remember it to this day. And since that time, though, I have had like amazing fortune to have to have the experience of being supported on just across the board since I came to Michigan. I have a long list of mentors who believed in my ideas and paths, and a lot more people said yes to me than sort of excluded me. So one is Tim Johnson, who I guess one way to describe him is if the idea was going to ruffle some feathers, he was all in. There is another one, his name's Mark Fendrick, and I still meet with him on a fairly regular basis, and he is constantly reminding me that he doesn't care how many grants I get or how many academic publications I get, that if I can't communicate the information to the people that can make changes, that none of that matters. And then lastly, and probably my closest mentor, is Dr. Fenner, who's been my solid for decades. I have been ugly vulnerable in front of her. I've shown up at meetings ill-prepared with some unformulated ideas, and she always gives me a second chance. So I really want to, I don't tell her enough how important she is in my life. I've also had the opportunity to build my career at a time where change seemed possible. So even in the abortion space, so 30 years ago, if you would have asked me if we would be where we are today, I wouldn't have believed it. I thought everything was just incrementally going to get better. And the reason I bring that up is while today is a very positive day, I want to just acknowledge that for many of us, we are feeling a tremendous amount of anxiety and uncertainty about what the future holds for us professionally and personally, especially for people that engage in topics like reproductive health. This is a slide that I had used for some other purpose and to talk about our program, and I think it still sort of applies a little bit to some thoughts that I have in sort of wrapping this up. Everybody, a lot of the earlier, people going through just academic development right now are hearing things like they have to change their academic focus or not do the things that they're passionate about to be successful. And recently, a faculty member in our department said to me that there was no way that she was going to change the words in her grant because this would be truly a betrayal of her values. And I get that. I understand that, and I think that that's a really important thing for us to think about. And to not think that that is a solution for a lot of people. And for some people, just asking them not to focus on the things that they're passionate about is really just like is really the end for them. But today, I think, as an academic institution, we do need to be very aware of the rapidly changing environment and think about strategies that we can make to support faculty. Because one of the things is that the changes that we are experiencing is very likely going to disproportionately disadvantage learners or faculty from already underrepresented groups. So accordingly, I mean, one of my sort of, I think, thinking forward, what I'm going to spend my time doing is thinking about the ways that we can continue to break down barriers. So in the medical school, for example, there's a lot of value placed on NIH funding, but NIH funding appears to be not a very unreasonable goal right now for a lot of people in a lot of topics. And so beyond just saying that no more will we rely solely on NIH funding for things like promotion decisions, we also have to make sure that the committee themselves can adhere to those and to be consistent with our institutional values. So in closing, I want to just thank all the people that have supported me throughout my career, including my family, my husband Eric, my boys who are not here, and Lisa, who has been my longest partner, and all the students and faculty that I've had the opportunity to work with over my career, because honestly, I've received as much as I've given to these relationships. And it's not only professional fulfillment, but that they have taught me to do my job better. So with that, thank you.
We have a second Sarah Goddard Power Award, which goes to Associate Professor at the School of Social Work, who has a courtesy appointment in the Women and Gender Studies Department and directs the Sexuality Relationship Gender Research Collective. Their work has several aims: to dismantle barriers and create opportunities for marginalized students, staff, and faculty, and to ensure equity across disability, gender identity, sexual orientation, and other intersecting identities throughout their career. In the classroom, this individual has embraced universal design as a guiding principle and philosophy. Their courses allow students to have agency over their learning experience in a way that meets their unique support needs. These choices promote autonomy, agency, and learning access in ways few instructors attempt. Their influence extends beyond the classroom to include consulting on accessibility across the university and beyond, as well as a notable mentee-centered approach to supporting students and colleagues. For all of these reasons, they have garnered this distinguished award. Shanna, Kattari, for all of the hard work you do to support all members of the university community on behalf of the Center for the Education of Women Plus, the Inspire Award Committee, and the Academic Women's Caucus, it's my honor to present you with the Sarah Goddard Power Award. So I can help hold it up. We did all right?
I'll tell you in a second.
All right. I'll put this on the chair over here.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. It's perfect because when I'm at conferences and all my students and early career faculty follow me around, they call me Mama Swan. And they're all my little signets. So what you see is a white non-binary femme with red hair and rainbow cat's eye glasses, some funky earrings, some tattoos, a kind of retro green dress, and a walker is what I look like. My name is Shanna Kattari. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the plus in CEW plus as a trans and non-binary person here, and I'm so excited to be here today. I did make slides, maybe. Oh, there we go. And I do just want to start for a second, because I will forget, to thank my partners, Allie, Emily, and Sky. I'm so lucky that we have such a wonderful polycule that supports one another. And some of the SRG folks from the collective are online, and I'm very thankful for the multi-directional mentorship that we do, multi-generational mentorship. And of course to Dr. Haley Miller, who was kind enough to nominate me for this. And we do a lot of work with how do we support one another in accessibility, but also just creating space for each other on campus. So I'm very thankful for that. I decided to talk just a little bit. I did make slides because I'm an educator. I'm going to talk just a little bit, all within 10 minutes or less, about anti-carceral pedagogy, disability justice, and radical authenticity. And this is what undergirds the teaching, the mentorship I do, but also my research, and also how I show up in the world. And I think those are all important things to bring together. There's an image of a cute penguin reading a book. There's an image of a variety of disabled people with different types of disabilities, of different races and genders hanging together. And there is an image of the neurodiversity symbol, which is a rainbow infinity sign. So I just wanted to note, even making this, I made this in Canva because I'm learning new technology, that even when I typed in teaching, I got these very specific images of somebody at the front of the room presenting to the rest of the space. Even if it's a full classroom of students that are connecting, there's this one person that holds the knowledge. But then when I typed in learning, I got images of, like, even when people are separate, they're all sitting on books and they're literally connected by lines together. They're in a circle sharing things. They're sharing a book at a table. And so, you know, it's interesting to me even how we categorize what does it mean for education. But I am really big on anti-carceral pedagogy. I don't think a lot of people call it that, but that's the name and direction that we're going with it. And I'm a little nervous because we have an education person here, so I'm like, hopefully this is like fairly accurate. But if we think about much of our K-12 education in the US, it's about warehousing children, right? It's not about following their actual learning needs. It's about what do we do with children during the day? How do we prepare them to be good workers within, you know, this capitalist system? And we start to replicate that sometimes in education. We've kind of moved almost to this consumer model where evaluations become basically like, just like if you're at Starbucks and fill out the receipt. There's often a debate in education about, are you the sage on the stage that is performing as such, or are you the guide on the side, the person that is, gently pushing learners a direction? But both of these still position educators as arbiters of all knowledge. And I want us to think about, how do we make space for our students to explore, to try new things, and to feel safe enough to fail? And I think when people don't have that, there's not space for critical thinking, because everything is about getting the right answer and the right grade in order to succeed and move to the next level. And this is especially true as we think now about AI and how AI is preventing a lot of critical thinking, and also how we encourage people to innovate and think about new ideas and new theories and to create. So my idea around this draws from universal design for learning, which is an established approach to make classroom spaces, virtual and in person, more accessible and engaging. I use various types of ungrading models, which if you're not familiar with that, I really encourage you to check that out. I use abolitionist texts and lessons, and I've been doing a lot of work with the SRG collective in writing about queering, transing, and cripping social work education, research, and praxis. And so the way I really approach my classroom is that we're all in this together, we're all learners and we're all teachers, and how can we show up in this collective way to make us usually better social workers. And so, for example, I have no attendance policy in any of my classes, and I still get about an average of 95% attendance. I use ungrading. Basically, if you don't meet expectations, I'll give you very detailed feedback, and 2 weeks to turn it in again, and you lose 1 point. Right? So the idea is, I'd rather you turn it in and try, and then we'll get you to where you need to go, rather than sitting there and debating, is this a 79 or an 80, and do I fail this student, and what's the difference around that? I use UDL to make classes proactively accessible as possible, and I, of course, validate accommodations and work with students to say, I teach grad students, and oftentimes their accommodations say time and a half on a test. We don't do tests for the most part in social work. So I ask them, what would make this class more accessible to you? Treating the student as a whole person, so not shaming them. If they tell me they're out for the day, I just write back, thank you for taking care of yourself. I'll see you next week. The class will be recorded online. If they're late, we have a no judgment extension. As long as you ask for an extension, you get one, except at the end of the semester, because I have to grade, and that is my boundary too. So I make space for students to connect and be in relationship to one another. And I really model my own access needs and challenges. So you see, even here, I'm really appreciative of CART and captioning so that I was able to see this. My classes all use that. Sometimes I'm having a bad brain day, and I'll mention aphasia to my students, and we'll all have fun time trying to figure out what word I'm looking for. And I make it so that it's okay to ask for your access needs to be met. We also have shared note-taking documents that I set up for all my classes, so everybody contributes to the note-taking, which means different things hit differently for different people, and we get a more wide view rather than having every individual try to take notes at the same time. And then just offering multiple ways to engage, complete assignments, etc. So I really encourage people to think about what that would look like. As far as disability justice, there's a print of mine. I also do, when my hands work well, printmaking, that says access is love and has some kind of funky design around it. I don't know what I was thinking. But the 10 principles of disability justice are so close to my heart, and they're intersectionality, always first, right? That's already been talked about a lot here today. The leadership of those most impacted, right? That's very much in line with Regent Power and what she was looking for. An anti-capitalist politic, commitment to cross-movement organizing. We're not alone in this. How do we work together? Recognizing the wholeness of a person, which I already talked about a little bit, but that should be true in every space that we're in, not just at work, not just at home, right? We are parents, we are siblings, we are caretakers, we are printmakers, we are, athletes, and all of these things come together. The sustainability of our movement, right? So how do we prevent burnout? How do we work together so we take turns and keep moving it forward? A commitment to cross-disability solidarity, right? It's not just one type of disability, but I see a lot more neurodivergent students now. I see students with IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities. How do we make sure that they're also included when we're talking about this work? Interdependence, which is the opposite of independence, right? We are literally all in this together. How do we support one another? How do we rely on one another when we need each other instead of trying to do this all on our own? I think we saw that with Vanessa's talk about mentorship and coming together to do this work. Collective access, we're all responsible for access in spaces, and collective liberation. So that's kind of the deal of disability justice, and I am both the director of the Sexuality, Relationship, Gender Research Collective and the convener of the Social Work Disability Justice League, and there's logos for that. And I just put up a variety of pictures on the screen of different groups of my mentees. This is, again, why the swan was so perfect, because literally we travel around in packs at conferences. But like on the screen up here was at a recent conference, we talked about vulnerable and hard to reach populations, in which we were like, maybe people not participating is not there's something wrong with them, but it's actually like a care mechanism because they've been really harmed. And what I appreciated is I'm immunocompromised, so I mask everywhere that I go, and I tend not to go to things in person. But everybody on the panel showed up in a mask for me, right? But conversely, this is a picture of all the Disability Justice League members that were at a social work conference last fall. You'll see I'm wearing a lip reading mask, so it has something here because we have deaf members, and we opted to have our yearly meeting outside so that it was a lower COVID risk for me, and I could wear a less strong risk, and then also everybody else was still able to attend. So this is when we talk about collective access and how we take care of one another in these spaces. And then these are on the right here are my doc students right now, and they're really lovely. And then I also have wonderful ones online. I'm sorry that you don't want to have pictures of everyone. So the last part, this is where I get really nervous, is about radical authenticity, right? And I'm often told I don't look like a professor. I'm somewhere between 1950s housewife Miss Frizzle and Penelope Garcia from Criminal Minds is usually where, and now everybody's like, oh yeah, no, that's accurate. And there's a picture of me on the screen. I'm teaching a queer and trans social work class this semester, so this was the first day of class look, and there's pride flag dress and rainbow earrings, and you can see I'm a board certified sex educator as well, so in the background there's like a stuffed uterus, but also protect trans kids sign. And I think that it's important to show up and show community and colleagues and students who you are. And especially in these times where trans people are being erased, like literally erased out of systems and being forced back into the closet, and our neighbors are being disappeared, and reproductive justice has gone backwards. You can't raise a family if you can't feed your family, if you have no safe place to be. And I think it humanizes us. We're often, particularly when we connect with the community, we're seen as like, oh, you're a UM person, right? You're a scholar, you're a researcher. And even as a community engaged researcher, it comes with like a certain je ne sais quoi of like, oh, you work at UM. We especially experience it at the School of Social Work. We are the #1 ranked School of Social Work. And we can like talk about how those rankings happen. But oftentimes people are like, oh, you're at Michigan. Like I literally have people come up to me at social work conferences and like push their doc students at me and are like, oh, you're at Michigan, whoop, right? And so thinking about how do we humanize ourselves, because I'm also white and I am trans and I'm queer and I'm disabled and I'm neurodivergent and I'm Jewish and Jewishy somewhere in there, and I'm polyamorous and I'm fat, and all of these things show up in different ways in how I engage in the world. So it allows for emotions and realities and deeper connections with students. I often have students say, I have a student who just emailed me yesterday, lives in Manistee, which is a very small town in Michigan, and she said, I've never heard somebody refer to themselves as fat. And I too am fat. How do I get connected? I've never been able to talk to other fat people, right? And so I got doxxed last year because of my bio on the social work website, names my identities. And Libs of TikTok and Moms for Liberty and Fox News picked it up, and it was very nasty. We got a swastika made out of pride flags sent to our house. And the school asked me if I wanted to take down my bio page. And I was like, absolutely not, right? And I do have a lot of privilege. I'm tenured, I'm white, right? Like I don't have children that I'm worried about getting attacked. But I think that there's something to be said for when we show up as who we are, that we are able to connect with folks who don't necessarily feel like they belong here. And I think this is especially important for neurodivergent people, because when we have to mask ourselves, that's actual harm, not this type of masking, the camouflaging of who we are. And I think it's a critical praxis, right? I think this is bringing theory into the world. And so on that note, I just wanted to say, nothing is okay right now. We are not okay. The world is not okay. It feels really hard to be sifting through doc student applications or faculty meetings about curriculum when I am worried about who I'm giving whistles to. As a side note, I have a ton of whistles in my pocket if anybody needs one. Carrying on business as usual, it's not normal. We should be feeling things in response. And like that is your nervous system doing pattern recognition and saying this is not okay, we should not be doing this. And what we also know, in times of fear and overwhelm, community is the antidote. We have to turn towards community. And so wherever this looks like, connecting with your community, whether it's people here today, in your neighborhood, online, one of my classes that has students from all over the country set up their own Signal thread as like teaching each other how to use Signal and doing OPSEC, which it's a class on sexuality and social work. But this is where they connected and are making that happen. At your place of worship, on your sports team, wherever you're going, connect with people and say, what are we doing here? What's our lane? What's our role? And I'm really happy to connect people with different ways to look at roles, whether it's a D&D, are you a fighter, are you a bard, are you a tank, are you a healer, or Deepa Iyar's social change eco map has really interesting roles. Are you a guide, are you a frontliner, are you a storyteller, going back to our education piece. But we protect us. And so I know this was not really the topic of the talk, but I have you as a captive audience. And I'm just really tired of being in spaces where we're not naming what's happening. And it's okay that it's not okay. And I hope everybody is taking really good care of themselves. So with that, I'm so thankful to CEW. Many of my students have been funded by you, and that is the only way they've been able to graduate. I'm really thankful for the plus. I'm really thankful for the trans-inclusive bathroom. That is lovely. And I'm just thankful to be in this space. So thank you all so much today. This is who I am. I'm a professor that believes in masking as community care in free Congo, Sudan, Haiti, Palestine, Tigray, Yemen, and more. I believe in land back, that Black Lives Matter. I believe that trans kids should become trans adults. I believe in queer liberation now, that disability justice is everything. We must abolish ICE, and that science saves lives. Another world is possible, and we just need to create it. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel pumped up in a good way. Thank you, everybody, for being here and those who are on the live stream. My name is Sandra Idarosa. I'm the Associate Director here at CEW+, and I'm honored to present our final award for the day. Rhetaugh Dumas was the esteemed leader with vision, insight, and wise counsel who had a major impact on the advancement of nursing, healthcare, and academic programs at U of M. Vice Provost Emerita Dumas was the first African-American woman to hold the position of dean at the University of Michigan when she was appointed back in 1981. She remained dean of nursing until 1994, when she was named the inaugural vice provost for health affairs and the Lucille Cole Professor of Nursing. Prior to these appointments, she was the first woman and the first nurse to serve as a deputy director of the National Institute of Mental Health. There, she oversaw alcohol, drug abuse, and mental health administration from 1979 to 1981, and before that, she was chief of the psychiatric nursing education branch of the Division of Manpower and Training Programs from 1972 to 1976. I'm tired just reading her accomplishments, let alone actually achieving all this. So impressive. She was also founding member, a charter fellow, and the former president of the American Academy of Nursing. Dumas served the University of Michigan for over 20 years with vision and a commitment to excellence. This award began in 2009 as a unit-level award and was named after Dumas to honor schools and colleges that work toward increasing racial and gender diversity across faculty, ladders, and tracks. This is the first year that this award is presented to an individual, a faculty member who demonstrates a commitment to the ideals embraced by Vice Provost Dumas, particularly a commitment to inclusivity of underserved identities. So this final Inspire Award this afternoon, in honor of Vice President Provost Emerita Dumas, goes to an Arthur F. Thurneau Professor of Jazz and Contemporary Improvisation and Earl V. Moore Professor of Music at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance. She receives this award for her sustained effort to promote gender diversity in jazz ensemble, composition, and arranging, and her overall commitment to advancing the role of women in jazz. She is the first woman chair of a major university jazz department and among the first women directors of a university jazz ensemble. Under her leadership, the U of M jazz program recruited more female students than any other jazz program of a comparable size in the country. As a younger woman entering the music field, it was clear the jazz community lacked women role models. Through modeling leadership and advocacy, she realized a vision of gender diversity and opened doors for many others to enter through. Ellen Rowe, on behalf of the Center of Education of Women Plus and the Inspire Awards Committee, it is my honor to present you with the very first individual Rhetaugh G. Dumas Award. Let's see what yours looks like.
Oh, it's a cardinal. Very amateur bird watchers.
Well, this will inspire you to become
A better bird watcher.
more avid.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Oh, that's, yeah, thank you, script, that's mine.
All right. Yeah, I didn't want to read yours.
No, that'd be good. Thank you. Do you need a minute? No,
I think it's all set. I just
appreciate that.
hooked up.
I am so grateful to the CEW Plus for this award. I'm also very grateful to my colleague at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, Associate Dean Christina Castro, for the nomination, and other colleagues who may have written on my behalf. I will admit that I am much more comfortable sitting at a piano than I am in front of a microphone, but if you can bear with me through the speech, I do have some music to play for you at the end. So. I'm also learning about the amazing legacy of Professor Dumas. I'm even more appreciative of this award, so thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to preface my comments with the words emblazoned at the top of the front page of the Berklee College of Music Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice website, led by the Grammy Award-winning jazz drummer and composer Terry Lynn Carrington. They pose the question, what would jazz sound like in a culture without patriarchy? And they continue to say, the jazz industry remains predominantly male due to a biased system imposing a significant toll on those who aspire to work in it. In understanding the importance of balance and equity, the goal of the Berklee Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice is to do corrective work and modify the way jazz is perceived and presented, so the future of jazz looks different than its past without rendering invisible many of the art form's creative contributors. So I love those words, and we are trying to model them in the work that we do at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. And I have to say I'm extremely privileged to have taught in the Department of Jazz and Contemporary Improvisation for almost 30 years. During that time, I've taught courses in jazz improvisation, jazz arranging, jazz pedagogy, offered private jazz piano lessons, and been, and still am, the director of the University of Michigan Jazz Ensemble, which, by the way, has a concert next Thursday night at 8 o'clock in Rackham, if you were looking for something to do. One of my main goals has been to recruit female students to our program so that there can be a diversity of musical voices in our ensembles and a variety of opinions in our classrooms. I'd also like to state that anytime I refer to female or women students, I mean to be inclusive of female identifying and non-binary students as well. It is important to understand what jazz is. It is a music deeply rooted in African rhythms and vocal traditions brought over to America by enslaved people. In the South, it was originally performed on guitars, voices, and drums, but it eventually made its way to New Orleans, where it came into contact with European song forms and instruments more traditionally associated with bands, like trumpets, tubas, trombones. And so far, with the exception of the voice, I have only mentioned instruments that were more commonly associated with men. Perhaps the most salient features of jazz at the time, and still today for that matter, are swing, which is the way in which jazz players inflect their eighth note lines, the primacy of the blues, and improvisation, whereby the musicians make up new melodies and riffs on the spot over the harmony of the given song. Unfortunately, the expression of swing feel, or the blues, has historically been equated with expressions of masculinity. Often young women who are expected to convey these attributes can feel awkward or unfeminine. As a young educator, I found that it took some time for me to feel comfortable counting off a jazz ensemble piece in a meaningful way, such as 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That took me several years to get comfortable doing that. Let's see. As a young, I said that. It required a physicality and confidence that I wasn't fully ready to convey to a group at that point in time. And of course, I hadn't ever seen another woman count off a jazz ensemble before, so I had no role models. For many professional women jazz artists, the phrase, "she plays like a man," has often been intended as a compliment, though it completely robs her of her own identity and overlooks it. She is expressing her own voice, not trying to emulate a man. These stereotypical expectations of what a man or woman is supposed to sound like can be particularly difficult for younger women to navigate. And societal expectations of how a woman performer should look also still abound. When Dr. Tammy Kernodle, an internationally recognized scholar and teacher in the areas of African American music and gender studies, was asked how the controversy over a, quote, woman's place in jazz had changed over time, she answered, "I don't think it has changed at all." Each generation of women musicians have had to deal with preconceived notions about their abilities, as well as record companies and market strategies that often position their physical appearance over their musical talents. I mention all of this to try and help explain the evolution of an art form which women did not feel comfortable in and, up until maybe the last 30 years or so, were not particularly welcome in unless they sang. The situation has definitely improved since then, but not by nearly as much as it should have. In grade school, young women are still encouraged to pick the feminine instruments like flute, clarinet, or violin, which are not typically jazz band instruments. They often have male jazz band directors in junior and senior high, and the same instincts that may prevent young women from raising their hands in class can make them very uncomfortable standing up and taking an improvised solo. Their directors don't often think to bring in female guest artists or direct them to videos of today's leading female jazz artists. The great majority of big band literature is written by men, so it doesn't occur to many of them that they too could think about composing jazz band music someday. Although I do want to mention that I've been involved in a new publishing company called Brava Music that is solely devoted to publishing secondary school jazz band music written by women. As young women get to college, they are also faced with the fact that less than 10% of collegiate jazz ensemble directors are female. I would surmise that an even smaller percentage are in leadership positions within their departments, and as in my case, when they do chair a department, are usually the only woman on the faculty and have to navigate the ensuing personal dynamics. And I think we all know what those are. Solutions for these problems lie in mentorship and advocacy. Positive steps are being made by publishing companies that actively seek out pieces by women composers. And more wonderful female jazz artists are now teaching at major universities and summer workshops, providing role models for the young women in their programs. And the Jazz Education Network's Sisters in Jazz Collegiate Combo Competition, which I direct, has attracted larger and larger pool of applicants every year, which I am so thrilled to see. I'm optimistic that these trends will continue, and in the spirit of that optimism, would like to close with a recording I made with my all-women octet, Momentum, in 2019, that features one of my first female jazz trombonists, Melissa Gardner, who is now a major force on the jazz scene in Syracuse, New York. I composed all the music on the album, and each piece is dedicated to heroines of mine in politics, sports, social justice, environmental advocacy, and the like. This piece is entitled Ain't I a Woman? And was written in honor of unsung heroines of the civil rights movement like Septima Clark, Fannie Lou Hamer, Mary Bethune-Cook, Daisy Bates, the Reverend Polly Murray, just to name a few. I'll fade out after Melissa's incredible improvised trombone solo. Thank you so much for this amazing honor. improvised solo. Melissa Gardner, yeah. Thank you very much.
That was just lovely. Okay, to close out our program today, it is my pleasure to invite to the podium Dr. Patricia Coleman-Burns, Assistant Professor Emerita of Nursing from the U of M School of Nursing, a longtime supporter of the Academic Women's Caucus, champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and supporter of our center. As a scholar, Professor Coleman-Burns has focused her career on retention and successful learning behaviors of underrepresented nursing students, health disparities, and social justice in patient-centered care and providers' behaviors, Black ideology, and the Colored Women's Club movement. An advocate for the right of all persons to be free from gender oppression, sexism, racism, and violence. She has served as the co-chairperson of U of M's Violence Against Women Task Force, as well as serving on several advisory committees on diversity, multicultural, and women's issues. Please welcome Dr. Fisher.
Ooh, I'm too short, so I can't see. Tiff, I didn't know how this was going to go. I was like, this is the room that we meet in, right, to do work. And so I was like, how are we going to do this? But once again, Tiffany and her crew have pulled off an amazing celebration that honors a legacy and a spirit that's unmeasurable. So let's give them a big round of applause. And as Shanna did, I am a Black woman with a lot of melanin in my skin, with locks, wearing something representing Black History Month, which we have tried to wipe off for many hundreds of years, which will never go away. A lot of gray, because I believe it represents some earned struggles. I was in a place today, and someone younger than me said he dyed his hair. I'm like, I'm not dyeing my hair. I earned every one of these gray locks. I want to recognize Tiffany. This was amazing. Do you all know who this woman is? Do you know her spirit? I hope you heard every piece of words, of content that she put together. She's very subtle, and I hope in the future you go back and listen to this program. Listen to what she has done and her staff in terms of putting together a history that underscores the struggle that we have been in, that we are in, and that we are about to go through, because it is not over. Give Tiffany again and CEW and the work they've done a big. I thought the plus was me, girl. I thought it was me, so, okay. I want to also recognize Dr. Sharon Hobbs in the room, a longtime friend of Rhetaugh Dumas. We go long back. Most of you may or may not know that in the African American community, we never come to the ivory tower without bringing the community with us. We owe a lot to the community, and Sharon, as a psychologist, has been with the Dumas family for many, many years. I have words from Rita's daughter. She will get me, and she's probably on this line. Cookie says, look, don't forget her mom. Rita hired me in 1991. I am not a nurse. Don't y'all get sick. Go to Vanessa. As a nursing faculty, to bring to this campus a sense of what we call them. I ran the Office of Multicultural Affairs. So all these folk who said all of a sudden we invented DEI, no, we had been on this journey since our coming to this country, whether you count it as 1619 or 1500 or whatever, and we're still on that journey. My partner in crime, Mary Lee, Academic Mary Lee, stand up so folk can see you. Academic Women's Caucus. We've been on this, and the spirit of Tiffany is always to bring us in, to ask us what we think, what we're missing, how to make sure the history and the intent is always represented. And you all have captured all of this spirit. But when we did this, and I'll say it was probably about 10 years ago, I don't know, someone high up asked us, why are we still doing this women-centered stuff? And we were like, what? Aren't we through with this yet? They asked us. And they said, oh, we don't need the CEW award stuff. Somebody really high up. And we sort of looked at each other and we remember that? And we smiled. And I ask you, and you all, many of you have answered this question. Are we there yet? Have we finally arrived where we can now wave the flag of victory and sit down? You know, there's a movie, and I always laugh at the movie. The negative side of the movie is called The Mist. How many of you know The Mist? It was a book by Stephen King. And in The Mist, right, they do all this struggling and they make all these sacrifices, and right at the very, very end, they give up. And that's when they're saved. You have to go read, it's very dark. But it cautions us, and whoever said it, a bunch of you said it, we're right there, and we cannot give up now. I think we're there. We've come I think Vanessa talked about who would have thought that we would be at the point and all the victory that we had won for control and understanding about our own bodies, to now here we are losing autonomy. Who would have thought? And we let our guard down somewhere along the way. In 1968, on March 31st, the Sunday before the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, he stood at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., March 31st, 1968, at that famous pulpit. Now, you might remember the pulpit from 2025. Bishop Marianne Booty stood there, that same pulpit. You know how you women are. She said, have mercy to someone sitting right in the front row. Show mercy. Well, it was that pulpit in 1968 that Dr. King, in his famous speech, Staying Awake Through the Revolution, and he talked about the story of Rip Van Winkle. And he said, most people think about the 20 years that he was asleep. But he said, I want you to focus on when he went up into the mountain, that there was a picture of King George on the sign. And when he came back down, there was a picture of President George Washington. And he ends that speech on the Sunday before he was assassinated, saying, stay woke through the revolution. The message to us is as well, stay woke through this period that we're going through. This is not the time to go asleep. We know, and some of you, and I don't want to do ageism, may not know that the League was created because women could not go into the Michigan Union unescorted. Not until 1956 were women allowed to go into the Michigan Union unescorted by a man. And not until 1972 could women go into the billiard room. It's not that long ago that the advantages, that the accomplishments that you have been awarded for today have been able to be achieved, even though in your DNA have always been this genius. And as many of you talked about, and you didn't get here by yourselves. You didn't do it because you were just so great. You did it because of all the work that had been done by people like Carol Hollenshead, Sarah Power Goddard, Rhetaugh Dumas. And so I leave you with a challenge. Don't sleep through this moral, cultural, justice-filled revolutions of change. We leave you asking you to pay it forward, to remember the challenges that we're facing even now as we sit here. Someone is being disappeared. Someone is being knocked on their door. Someone is being disrespected. Someone is struggling to see the future ahead of them. But you and I are here because we are the ones that are saying, yeah, we still need this. We still need all of what you and I have been able to achieve. And we're going to bring a whole bunch of folk along with us. Who is that said? It's community. That's how we're going to do it. We don't need guns, because we could never win with that. We don't need force and violence. What we need is each other. Thank you very much.